Buyers, and welcome to another episode of She Slays the Day podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lauryn Brunswick. So, I was talking to someone last week through my DMs, and I had said, like, oh, well, did you listen to this episode from a couple months ago? That guest really solved that. And she was like, no, I didn't. I have to be honest. Sometimes, like, I won't listen because she's not a chiro. And she was like, sometimes I won't listen because I don't think the message is going to be for me specifically because it's more of a chiro thing. But I always listen to your intros because I feel like that's how I get my updates on you. And that's actually like the fourth or fifth time I've heard that from somebody over the last 2 years that they're like, I don't always have time to listen to every episode, but I listen to every intro, which just kind of validates like how much stress or pressure I put on myself before I hit record on these damn intros. Like sometimes I'll just sit here for like 5-10 minutes, like, okay, what do I need to update people on? Do I have anything funny or relevant that has happened in my life? Oh, make it good, Lauryn. So I don't really have anything funny for you today. I am in a period of supposed rest. The last summer and this summer, oh my God, as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, am I though? So September is always a pretty big, like once September kicks off, September through December just tends to be a season of travel and seminars. I get asked to speak at a lot of things. I go to UAC events. So like September through December just tends to be a little insane with that. Then we kind of go into selling the multi-passionate chiropreneur pretty much. Well, last year we did it in December. And I feel like it kind of took some of the magic away from Christmas. So I'm contemplating with a different sales route. I haven't really thought about it yet. I'll have to start thinking about it in September, where I might take the 6-week like sales program and turn it into like 3 weeks. And it's basically from like December 27th to the middle of January. But that sounds terrifying to me. Because that's just a lot of phone calls. It's like, because we usually do like 70 phone calls to onboard people for that. And because not everybody that I get on the phone with, I suggest that they do it. It's kind of like, I think you should wait. Because it is an investment. So anyway, so just the idea of compacting that is scary. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. And then we actually do the multi-passionate chiropreneur program that goes through April. And so like May through August is supposed to be this period of like rest, right? Like if you've seen any of those reels or TikToks where it talks about a tree and how like nature, like trees aren't supposed to bloom all the time. They lose their leaves and they rest and then they like come back in spring. And we're not all meant to be evergreens that are blooming all the time. I guess that's not a relevant analogy that they want to talk about in that reel. Like I could be an evergreen, but I can't. But yet I get antsy. I get really antsy in this period of rest where it's like I feel so unproductive. And so I've like right around the time, and then I fill it with stuff, right? Like I think it was May where I'm supposed to be resting, and I'm like, all right, I'll take 4 one-on-one people. And then I think it was also April or May, early May, where I got on a phone call with Steph and Elise, and we're like, well, let's plan an event. And then I also released 2 courses in there. So somehow I'm feeling antsy in my period of rest, which isn't actually that restful. So I'm very curious for those. Like, I don't know if that's because of my human design. I do not know enough about that. We need somebody to come on the podcast and talk about that. I'll just annoy them because I'll make references to the Enneagram the entire time. And I'll be like, is that like a 3? Is that like a 7? Is that like it sounds like an 8. They're like, what are you talking about? I came here to talk about human design. But human design are like, I think generators or projectors. Or one of them, Kirby, which one are you? Okay, so Kirby's a generator, but then he said he thinks we're an Enneagram household in here. But they like go through these periods of like massive productivity, but then they need to rest. And in my brain, like I'm not that. So I'm a human, no, I'm a manifesting generator, which we don't need that, but like mentally, I feel like I do need that, but then I don't actually give it to myself. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Guess if I just burn out, it's not a big deal. I'm having fun. So I don't think we have any updates then. Besides that, besides my mental health stamina, I do. Okay, as we speak, I do not have the skeleton, the Costco skeleton. I don't want any other skeleton. So you can stop sending me messages that say Tractor Supply Plus has one. It's only 4 feet. Do you think I am this committed to this to settle for a 4 foot skeleton instead of a 6 foot one? Nay. And I can't have the 12-foot tall one, Menards, which if you're not from the Midwest, you're like, what did you just say? That's like our Home Depot. They do have like a 12-foot tall, like entire length skeleton that is, it's cool, but the neighbor to my clinic has it. I can't, I can't be a copycat. Like, I no, I need my own unique skeleton. And so I was informed, my mom stopped at our Eau Claire Costco. Eau Claire Costco, shout out to them. They have been incredible. I call almost every day and they are so kind. They told me once that they heard a rumor that Rochester, Minnesota had one. So what do? I call Rochester, Minnesota, of course, because I will drive to get this. The lady was so mean. Like, excuse me, ma'am. I know that I'm the ninth white basic bitch female who saw this on TikTok and needs to have the skeleton. You could like at least be nice to me about it. Like you would not get a job at Starbucks where you would have to answer the phone. Is pumpkin spice lattes back yet? No, they're not yet, but soon. Like you have to be kind to us. We keep the world basic. I was gonna say going, but no, we don't. We don't. We just follow all the viral trends and just consume. I will get that skeleton. Okay. On a different note. Oh, today. That's right. So I recorded this podcast a couple months ago, actually. And this is we're learning about Ayurvedic medicine today. Now I'm pretty sure at the time that I did this podcast, I learned how to say Ayurvedic, but I forgot. So I'm just going to butcher it right now. But they have their own like little personality test today. So you'll get to figure out which one you are. I took the test and I forget what it was called. It's like, it's basically the Leo, the fire sign, the 378. Like you'll hear it and you'll be like, oh yeah, yeah, that's probably it. But I think I was like, not happy because when she describes it, she talked about how they are like smaller framed individuals. And the other one, like a different one, she said are like more mid-size individuals. And I'm definitely mid-size, no matter how much I try. Just just what my genetic makeup is. So, but yeah, I'm whatever the fire one is. Okay, so Dr. Shivani is an Ayurvedic. Okay, you guys ever watched HGTV, not HGTV, the Food Network with Jada De Laurentiis? And she'll just be like, this is probably like such an old reference. I don't even know if she's still on HGTV. No, Food Network. And she'll just be talking super normal and then she'll be like mozzarella. And so that's how I feel about to read this bio, where I'm going to talk like a very basic bitch and then try and pronounce Ayurvedic properly. Okay, let's try this. Round two. Dr. Shivani is an Ayurvedic practitioner and expert infusing Eastern and Western practices that help our bodies achieve equilibrium. She completed her master's in Ayurvedic sciences and her PhD on turmeric. Inflammation is a root cause for many health issues in our lives, and we have the power to overcome it. Her passion is teaching at home remedies to reduce inflammation naturally and will help you enjoy more energy, less brain fog, less pain, and ultimately achieve vibrant health. She is also the founder of Fusionary Formulas, an Ayurvedic company that helps people with inflammation and pain. In this, we get some good little tidbits in this one. I have her go through and give like the top 10 ingredients that she would recommend like having in your kitchen and cooking with and incorporating into your daily daily diet and the benefits of that. So whether you are chiropractor, different health practitioner, or just a layperson, you are going to learn something about your body and aging and health and all of that. So let's take a breath, connect with our breath as we go into learning about our bodies and the things that are from the outside in. Let us be reminded by the simple thing of breathing and how much it impacts our nervous system and how often we don't even realize we're holding our breath and holding tension in our body and our jaw and our shoulders. So just take a breath, relax that jaw, breathe that breath into your stomach, and tell yourself, hey, nervous system, you're safe. You're doing a good job. And yes, social media and all of that is going to show you everybody who's doing things faster and more. And they're going to try and pull you out of your season of rest that you committed to. And then you're going to wonder why you're anxious. And then you're going to get back on the bandwagon. But just remember the basics: breathe, water, sunlight, go for a walk, get adjusted, of course. And then maybe some turmeric in there too about your learn today. So, in your name we pray. Okay, people. So, without further ado, here is my conversation with Dr. Shivani Gupta on Ayurvedic medicine. Enjoy.
I just spoke at FCPA, Florida Chiropractic Physician Association,
Oh,
twice. I just did one last weekend and I did one before, and I've attended it, and I've attended FCA, Florida Chiropractic
okay.
Association, the national meeting. It happens in Orlando, which is up the road.
Yep.
But yeah, I just like less than 5 days ago did a 100-minute talk on inflammation, turmeric, and Ayurveda to chiropractors, which was really cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because we don't learn specifically. So, chiropractors, we learn a good amount of nutrition in school,
Yeah,
a good amount. I mean, especially when you compare it to
medical.
medical,
Yeah.
including GI. Like, what the hell is a gastroenterology degree? What are they talking about? Like,
I
literally,
know.
did they just show up and they're like, hey guys,
Here's
so
some
you're
Pepsid.
required, yeah, you're required
Can
to
I do
be another.
endoscopy on you? Because I'll make money
Right,
on it.
like, I don't understand like that and dermatology. I'm like, oh my gosh, those are two
Gut.
areas
Yeah.
that like there could be so much information and
Yeah.
yet still I
No.
have patients that are going in, getting a GI thing, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, talk to them about, like, parasites,"
Gluten.
or, like, see and they'll come back and I'll be like, "Did you ask them about parasites or blah, blah, blah?"
They were just
"Yeah, they didn't ask." Like, I've literally had patients be like, they asked if I had been to, like, Africa or something or why I would be asking about parasites, and I was like, "Oh."
you can only get
Mm.
them from going to Africa or India,
Yeah,
right? Like,
right.
no other way. Can't
No,
be in America
we are
eating
too clean. We are
sushi
too
or
clean up here.
pigs.
Well, and
Oh,
the thing is especially where I'm in Wisconsin and most Wisconsinites
yeah.
will like it's not unusual to go to Mexico
Sure.
for a week in the winter. Like
Yeah.
this is
Warm
standard
up.
up here. This is how we survive. So it's like, yeah, okay, but you've been doing all inclusive. Like you drank the margarita, you got the parasites, and like so. Anyways, yeah, those are interesting. So, what is your background? Because you're not
So
a chiropractor.
I'm not a chiropractor.
Yeah.
So I actually went to business school undergrad. I learned about social entrepreneurship as a model and structure for business. And I was like, oh, you can create social entrepreneurship ventures that change the world. Okay, that is what I'm going to do. And then I had such severe health issues growing up. I was always airsick, seasick, car sick. And I was so disastrously sick in college. And I finally learned about gut health, which I wish I had learned about earlier, and I learned about Ayurveda. And so once I learned that Ayurvedic medicine existed, I looked at my parents and I said, you know what? We're in the land of yoga and Ayurveda. Can we please go outside these doors and go study it? And luckily, my parents were successful, but very burnt out entrepreneurs. And they were like, sure, let's do it. And so we went and lived in these ashrams and Ayurvedic centers and just detoxed and cleansed. And I was like, this is it. This was the system I needed my whole life. Instead of whenever I was sick, you guys would approach with gut health. We went to pediatrics and they would hand us a prescription for antibiotics. So
Mhm.
basically, my gut got killed 100 times in my childhood. And then I spent the next decade rebuilding my own gut health. And I was just fortuitously so lucky that I was sent to like Ayurvedic centers to go learn. People were paying for me to study Ayurveda. Then I got so obsessed, I created conferences around it. But Ayurveda basically teaches you how to honor and revere gut health as all health, how to build a rhythm for gut health. So if you take that to be the center of all health, you'll have a different experience. And so I began like an Ayurvedic oil company. It didn't work. I did my master's in Ayurvedic sciences. That was the first time I studied it very formally. And then when I was in herbology class, I learned about turmeric. And I'm in herbology class, they're like, did you know cumin and coriander and hing and all these spices do all these things? And I thought, I'm Indian. Like we eat that every day. Like that's
Were
not special.
you born in America?
I was born in Houston, Texas.
Okay, so, like, you had were are your parents like, were they born in America too?
My parents were both born in India. Their marriage
Okay.
was arranged. They moved to America to start the American dream.
Yes, of
Luckily, they
destroying the gut.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, you live the American dream and look at what happens to so much health when you come here. It's so unfortunate. And as they built the American dream and were successful, we were going home to India every year to see their parents, my cousins, their siblings, all of that. So I grew up in two worlds. I grew up every year being there and most of my year, my schooling at least being done in America. And I always wondered, like, why are these worlds so different? How come when I'm in India, my grandma makes me teas and tinctures out of the kitchen and she totally fixes my gut. But then when I'm in America, I go to the doctor, I get better. I do get better. It's not like the antibiotics didn't work, but back
It's
then we were
it's
even giving
acute.
antibiotics for viruses. Like we had no thought process around it.
Right, yeah, it's a lot of, putting out the fire and not worrying about the long-term repercussions at all.
Exactly.
So how old were you? Because you kind of breezed over, like, you and your parents moved into a do you call it an ashram?
Yeah. So in my 20s, when I was going to college, I would go to India and I'd still get disastrously sick. It's like Montezuma's Revenge from Mexico, but happening India style. And if you've been to India, you know, like most likely you had a sip of water or a piece of ice or something and it just got you. And that had already happened to me 20 times. But this year was my freshman year in college. Same thing happened again. And we were in this Dr. Gupta's office and he's like, here's your prescription. And it was 12 medications. And this voice inside of me just screamed like, "No, we're not doing this again." And I looked at him dying in what felt like my deathbed, and I was like, "Can you explain to me what those are?" And he's like, "Well, the first one's the antibiotic, and the rest are for your symptoms." I said, "First of all, can you drop that antibiotic down a couple notches? Because we've been through this and I can't take the after effects. Secondly, you didn't prescribe a probiotic. And thirdly, I'm not taking all that stuff because I can't handle side effects."
Mhm.
And so when I asked my parents, hey, can we go study Ayurveda? We went to the most renowned centers. And so, like Santalan, Dr. Thambe is in Pune near Bombay, which is now Mumbai. So we went there, we lived there, we stayed there, and the doctor, Dr. Thambe, sat me down and he's like, "Your dosha, your mind body constitution is pitta." And they do pulse diagnosis. They look at the body, they look in your eyes, they analyze your tongue. They do all these things I had never seen anyone else do to me. And then when they give you the prescription of like sit on the floor to eat your dinner consciously, and we're putting a vat of like 2 tablespoons of ghee on your food and you're eating out of leaves, like it was such a juxtaposition to the entire life I had grown up with here in Texas in the US. And I was like, whoa, but I feel incredible. I feel
How
healthy.
long did it take?
I would say it took me a few years of
There's
detox.
the other problem is, like, need for instant gratification of, like, I've been eating this way for 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
my stomach still hurts.
Yeah, it takes time. And honestly, gut health is ever evolving. I go through periods now where I have to pay attention and say, love your gut. You can't handle stressful events, for example. Like someone passed away in my life last fall, and then my hair started falling out. And I was like, yeah, you have to address gut. You go through any surgery, you have to redo big gut protocols on your body. And that's why in Ayurveda, we teach that as an annual job. Every year, take 3 weeks and do a profound detox. It's called Panchakarma. But here in the West, we think of it as like, oh, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to binge drink and eat anything I want. So we're going to
Mm.
damage our gut on vacation. We're going to damage it every day, but we never pause. So now on a positive note, I teach that as detox at the intersection of seasons. So anytime like spring turns into summer, summer into fall, take a week and consciously do the best detox you can while you're working. Like just cut some inflammatory foods, add in some self-care and do some gut healing so that you're better set up for the season.
So, since we're talking about the detox, like a recommended, let's just go there now because I don't trust that I'll remember to come back. So, like, what is for a beginner
Hmm.
where you're wanting to do a week long detox?
Yeah.
What are some of your recommendations?
So, just taking one step back, Ayurveda is this entire system of health, healing, and medicine from India that's over 5,000 years old. And so, just like we have traditional Chinese medicine in East Asia and China and those countries around it, Chinese medicine has so much wisdom. We know it does. They have acupuncture, they have their herbs, qigong. The philosophies there are actually not so different than Ayurveda. In Ayurveda, we teach about circadian rhythm and sleep. That's a big component of Ayurveda. We teach about mind body constitution, your dosha, your individual constitution decided at birth that rules the likeliness of certain diseases and certain tendencies physically, mentally, and emotionally through your life. We teach about gut digestive fire as the center of all health. We teach about mindful medicine chest, which I consider the natural remedies that we can reach into, the teas, the tinctures, the herbs, the spices, and their power. And then we also teach a lot about detoxing. And within detox, the way I teach it is if you were going to take 1 week and heal the gut, I used to do this with my father-in-law all the time. We have a recipe called hing kapani. So there's a spice called hing. In the West, we call it asafoetida. No one in the West uses it. It's used a lot in Indian cooking. And then the second one is called kala namak,
Can I buy
Kala.
these on Amazon?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And so Kala Namak is just purple salt. Buy it from like Patel Brothers or any of the bigger Indian brands. But we, as Indians, buy them at our Indian grocery stores all the time. Those two spices are my favorite gut healing solutions. When people are like, oh my gosh, my gut is so messed up. I'm going to have to go to GI. I'm in trouble. I'm like, hey, guess what? Just meet me in a parking lot anywhere. I'm going to give you these two Ziplocs, make a tea out of it, and then call me. And they're like, oh my God, you solved my whole problem and I'm just fine now. And I always am like, I know, isn't it weird? My grandma used it on me. And recently I saw my grandma and I was like, Grandma, where'd you get that from? Because she was in India and she's like 90. She goes, oh, Shivani, my mom's sister told me that recipe and it's just always worked. And I was like, dude. And a lot of Indians know this recipe. It's not like only mine, but it's boil a cup of water, add a pinch of hing, add a pinch of asafoetida in there, be careful. A pinch of hing, a pinch of kala namak. Just those two spices, one pinch. Boil it, cool it to tea temperature, drink it. It
Every
is
day?
so seething.
Once a
It's
day?
not, it's like an acute solution. It's not meant to
Oh,
be used every day. So
okay.
it's like
Because I was
every
gonna say,
time.
you just said be careful, and then you just kept going. Be careful of
Yeah.
what?
Be careful that you don't overdo the hing because sometimes I'm like an overdoer of things.
If a
And
little is good, then
a
a
little
lot
is
is
good.
great.
Exactly. I do think that. I'm one of those people. I'm like, "Oh,
Mhm,
little cream or a lot of cream? Let's just do
mhm.
everything." But in the case of hing once, I overdid it, and I felt like something was cutting my tongue, and it was because
Ah,
the hing was too sharp for my tongue. So
okay.
just moderate on the hing so you don't make yourself crazy. But that one tea, if you're gas, bloating, indigestion, you ate something in a restaurant that doesn't sit well, you're in pain and you can't sleep because of your gut, that tea will fix like 99% of people's problems, in my opinion. And so a simple gut healing protocol would be for 1 week, eat khichdi. Have you heard of khichdi?
No. I'm gonna
Okay.
need, like, a
You
spelling
need like a
list.
glossary.
Yeah, at the okay. Normally, it's like, "Here's the links." It's like, "Here's the glossary of terms."
I should make 2 blog posts on this. I will
Yes.
do that just to make everyone's life
Thank
easier.
you.
Shivani making hing and Shivani making khichdi.
Yeah.
I will do that because you're right. How annoying. It's like a new vocabulary with new spices, and I'm not telling you how to do it easily. That's kind
Right.
of funny.
Okay,
All
so
right, I'll
Kajardi.
fix
Yeah.
Khichdi. So
Khichdi.
khichdi,
Yep.
yeah, people pronounce it khichari as well. So I teach that a lot. So I have a 6-week program, and in the 6-week program, I make everyone do a 21-day detox. And this dish becomes their like most loving favorite lifeline to comforting food. Because when I ask someone to do a detox, I'm going to ask you to cut the top 5 inflammatory foods. So I'm going to ask you to definitely cut alcohol, definitely cut sugar, Most people, not all, but a lot of people need to cut gluten. So I get them to cut it just so they can test for themselves if gluten is a troublemaker in their lives, which 90% of the time I'm right. Dairy. A lot of people don't tolerate dairy well, but we're unwilling to let go of our cheese, which I personally understand completely. I'm one of those too. Um, Sugar, dairy, gluten, alcohol, red meat. Red meat is the fifth. And then you can go into like peanuts, soy, corn. Sometimes those are inflammatory and problematic for a lot of people as well. So I just ask people, look, cut one, three, or five, as many as you can of the inflammatory foods. That's part one of a detox. Get the problem foods out of the way. Part two, focus on good self care, walking more, moving more, like sleeping well, some of the basics. Then add in the Ayurvedic gut healing tools. So, ginger lemon tea in the morning. Can you cut your meals down and eat more khichdi, which is just allowing the gut to heal itself? Can you add in hinka pani once a day,
Well,
which we
okay,
know
hold up, hold up. Go
gut
back
healing
to that. What can you add in more kitcherty, which is allowing the gut to heal
to heal?
itself?
Yeah.
So what is
Oh, khichdi
kitcher?
is just rice and split yellow beans, split
Okay.
yellow lentils, actually. And you pressure cook it and you just add a pinch of salt, turmeric, and cumin seed.
Okay. So like
It's like a
eating
porridge.
that for a meal instead of
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, in my normal life, I'm eating like eggs and gluten free toast and salads and roughage and all these things. And so the notion for an Ayurvedic detox is how do we like give the gut a rest? Let the body heal itself, clean and clear through everything. Because if you went to India for a detox, they get real intense. They are like colonic, enema. They want everything out of every orifice. Like it's super intense. So here in America, if you're not going to go to a center and do it that way with professionals, the way to do it at home is just give the gut the best rest you can.
Okay. So when you're talking about incorporating these spices and
Mhm.
things like that, do you say like start minimal or just like go for it? Because I feel like, because you talked about, so what was happening when you were going to India and you were like kind of reacting? Was that what was happening within your body?
It was intense. Like, when I stayed in India for 21-day detoxes and they're doing those enemas and Kalana, I mean, it all gets explosive. It's not a beautiful process by any means. And they do things like Jal Nethi. They'll have you run saline water through the nostrils. Let's clean the nasal
Oh, wow.
passages.
They're doing,
They have you eat ghee because they want that ghee to oleate and line the gut lining. Like, they go after it. And that's why you come out a new person. You're like, that was the most ultimate life oil change. Okay. And then you have a hard time making yourself go back. Like, I can't get my
mhm.
family to go back to any detox center that we've ever been to because they're effective, but it's not a fun process by any means. But I do think it's the best way to spend vacations because let's say, like, for example, my mom is diabetic and obese and has all the setups of my family history with diabetes. I'm like, Mom, why don't we go detox together for a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks? We're investing in our health. It's not fun, but we're together so we can laugh about it. And we come out the other side of it so healthy and vibrant. So yeah, so going to India, it was definitely a culture shock. None of us had had Ayurvedic treatments like that when I was in my 20s. And I convinced my parents. I was like, look, we are going to go visit all the top Ayurvedic centers around this country because I plan to build one in America. Like, that's my life dream is we have to show people how to do this. And I never collected the funding to build like my own beautiful Canyon Ranch Ayurveda center. And I ended up building my own products and my own teas and just I've always been on this journey of how do I break down Ayurveda in an approachable, doable, simple way that you'll actually use. Because like you said, if it's complicated, no one's going to do it.
Right.
And that's always the problem I run into is like, how do I break it down simple?
So talk to me about your experience of integrating back into America after that.
Oh,
Because I'm assuming a lot of your experience is what are some of the most common hurdles that everybody living in Western culture experience? So what were some of those issues that like when you came back and you're like, because I'm sure you were like on the plane back and you're like, no, I don't want a Diet Coke. I am going to bring these principles back to America and I'm great. And no, I don't want your sun chips either. Um,
exactly. You know what? I'm 43, so this has been a double decade journey, 20 years of still trying to figure that out. I would say that we all are on a health journey where we all get to slowly let go of the poisons and slowly pick up the good stuff. And that's been my journey. I was like a Dr. Pepper drinking, big red gum eating college kid who could just survive on caffeine and eat crap and drink. And it took me like right after I learned Ayurveda, I cut that out. I was like, well, we don't need gum. That's a chemical. We don't need any soda. That's a poison. We don't need to eat foods that are inflammatory. So I slowly cut them. It took me until post kids, so only in the last 10 years, to give up gluten. And that was a huge game changer. I never would have done it, but my sister pointed it out and was like, "Have you noticed that gluten isn't working with you?" And I was like, "Oh." And once I cut gluten, game changer. Dairy. I never wanted to let go of dairy. I'm the biggest nacho fan you've ever seen. I'm from Texas. Like I live for my Mexican food, but I've reduced it. So I would say on dairy, I just go 90-10, 80-20. I'm like, cut it as much as you can. I can keep goat's milk. But I almost feel like as you start to let go of what you consider bad and pick up what you consider good, you can also hit this new tipping point on the other side of that where you're so obsessed with what's good in your opinion that you are now causing new nutrient deficiencies because you're really decreasing variety. So I'm actually on that spectrum now where I have to hire a health coach and say, can you help me? Like my body is now in perimenopause and it's not listening. And so now we are working together and she's like, carbs are good. We didn't have to cut out all the carbs. Fiber's good. Got to increase the fiber. I'm like, yeah, but you can't with these foods. These foods are all poisonous. And she's like, no, nothing is poison. So it's interesting how you can
Oh yeah,
actually hit the
that's
other
a
side.
health condition, where you get I can't remember what it's called right now.
Orthorexia is like
Yes.
exercise obsession, but I wonder what you it's not anorexia, but it's like
No.
the opinion of and what's funny is I'm in the health and wellness world, so all I consume is health content. So now I'm like, "Oh my gosh, but meat is good, but meat is bad, but the ocean's polluted, but pescatarian's good." So it's a very confusing time now. But you know what I do? Anytime I'm confused on health, I'm like, "Well, what's your default? What are you gonna go back to?" Ayurveda says, "Live the middle way, moderation. Don't go extreme in any direction, and the body will calibrate with that." So that's usually my default point is like, okay, how about we listen to no one and we listen to our intuition? And our
Mm.
intuition knows what works within our system and what's not working in our system. And just go with that being your road.
By the way, orthorexia nervosa, it's not just, it's
Exercise.
that is, refers to an unhealthy obsession with healthy eating.
Oh,
And it revolves around the quality and purity of food rather than the quantity. And like, and that is like, I love to hear that Ayurveda,
yes, you got
nailed
it.
it, nailed it, um, is about the balance because within chiropractic, it's like a joke, or not a joke, common thing where you'll like go to a dinner at a chiropractic conference and it's like, I need dairy free, gluten free, this, and this. And I'm like, man, I ate a burrito for lunch and I feel great. And so,
It-
like, it almost seems like this phenomenon that as you remove the poison,
yeah,
then you become hypersensitive to when you are exposed to it. So that's something that like I've kind of struggled with a little bit,
yeah,
not with like like it's not like I'm holding on to my alcohol but like honestly like okay, so let's say and then it's like a single glass of wine with
yeah,
dinner can cause a hangover. Like that doesn't sound fun. I got to keep my tolerance up.
yeah,
But like no, with some of the things like
yeah,
gluten and dairy where it's like but how do you find like, what is that process of finding balance for? Like, do you recommend removing it completely first and
yeah.
then reincorporating, just reducing?
You know, it's funny. I had a mom recently text me and she's like, thank you so much for all the help you gave me. I just learned I have Hashimoto's, I am gluten intolerant, and my daughter has celiac. And I know this woman. And I was like, okay. And she goes, yeah, so I'm going to turn the whole house gluten free. And I said, you know what? Here's my recommendation, call it a kosher kitchen, half gluten free, but please don't do that to your husband and son. Don't make the house gluten free because they will lose their ability to eat gluten. Like you will take that away from them. And guess what? As a woman who travels and speaks and I travel internationally, like it sucks. It is not fun being gluten free. I hate that I'm gluten free. It's a lot of work. I'm constantly anytime I eat if anytime I'm in an airport, I'm just like, okay, wow, I'm 100% screwed. There's nothing gluten-free
Mhm.
and vegetarian in an airport to eat. I've traveled enough in the last year, so I have to order food and eat it before I leave or find it before I'm gonna fly out. So yeah, I really do think we have to be careful. When I do a detox with women, I'm always like 2 weeks. Take 2 weeks. Go without it, and when it comes back, just pay attention. Does it make you sleepy? Does it make you exhausted? Or are you fine? Because if you're fine, keep it. I'm I wish I could have kept it. But what I find is a lot of women don't tie gluten to the problems they're having. And so it's just one of those things where gluten in America is a problem. A lot of us can eat gluten abroad. I know I can go to Italy and eat all the gluten I want.
You
So
can.
I'm not celiac. I'm just intolerant to the levels of glyphosate and stuff and processing that's done to gluten in the West. So my encouragement is whole food, plant-based, and eat your healthy meats that are organic and grass-fed and good for you. Eat it all, but just take a quarterly check-in with yourself where you just drop everything down a couple of notches and listen to your body and understand what is actually good and what is bad. Because a lot of us don't know what's bad for us until we do an elimination diet and bring something back.
Mhm.
Like I did an elimination diet once. I did the standard process detox a few times. It's a wonderful one. And then afterwards, I ate like pineapple and my lips went numb. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. I love pineapple. And then I was like, oh, maybe I don't. Maybe it doesn't love me back. Okay. I can reduce that food, make it a few times a year food, not often. Because we know we have a lot of food intolerances, but if we're not going to go and test for it and pay for that, then elimination diet is a good way to get there.
So, why do you think this is a loaded $1,000,000 question? Why do you think Western culture or Western medicine, because like that's something that, you really encourage is the combination
Yeah,
with Western medicine. Like, why do you think Western culture is so oppositional to some of these principles? Like,
it's
it's
great.
these are things that like as a healthcare provider, we just look and go like, well, shouldn't that just be common sense of like digestion, like not eating on the go, trying to force your body to digest while you're literally in a neurological state of fight or flight. Because I'm assuming that's the like sitting down and like stopping. Is
Mhm.
that, like these are just really, really common sense. Like you do not need research to like prove that this would be better. So, what do you think the opposition is?
I love this question because it's so multidimensional. As a woman who was born in the West, who has also simultaneously lived a fully Eastern culture. I grew up in a traditional Indian house and then I married a traditional Indian man. And I run my household as an adult like an Indian household. We eat fresh Indian food every day in my house. The cultures and the rules, you can call them, but the culture of my country, India, is very much lived by. Those values are in my home. So it's interesting because when I look out, I always see all the similarities. I'm like, wow, like we're all the same. There's so much meeting in the middle. And yet, there's also sometimes I'll go to like a friend's house and I'll open the cabinets because I'm trying to find something. And I'm like, you don't own spices. You don't own like a pharmacy, FARM. Like your house is not abundant with like fruit and vegetables and all the ways that we build health. And it'll be a shock to me because I just assume everyone lives the exact same as I do. And then I'll have my friends drinking soda in front of me. They'll say, yeah, we didn't have time. We went to McDonald's today. And I'm like, wow, guys, we have to pay attention to what's happening right now. Look at chronic disease. Look at 1 in 3 cancer, 1 in 5, name all the horrible diseases, 1 in 5 obesity in the US. And that's like a made up statistics. Obesity is rampant and exploding in this country, whatever that rate is right now. And I just had a conversation with my sister, and we were talking about Ozempic and all the drugs and how everyone's getting on them. And I said, how can we not look forward 10 or 20 years and understand that no matter what you do, when you think something is a magic pill, it's usually not. Usually there's a
Mhm.
price that you're going to pay at the end of all these different things we want to do to get the rapid result. And so what I love is Ayurveda is kind of like that wise grandma who comes in and says, "Hey guys, everything new and shiny looks cool. Looks cool. But that doesn't mean that it's good for you. We have to go back to basics." And Ayurveda is really an ancient ancestral wisdom that has stood the tests of time, that has been applied to well over 1 billion people, because in this world of 8 billion, 1 billion are sitting over in India. That's the population. And it's been a way of building a thriving, healthy, aligned person. Now, do we have crazy disease in India? Absolutely. Obesity, diabetes, we have our own tendencies. But I think that's a lot of the byproduct of the exportation of the Western culture. As we export our Western culture around the world, our fast food, our Coca Cola, and all those things, we're seeing this crazy shift in the whole planet's health. And so my reminder to everyone is, you know in your gut what's real and what's not real. You
Mhm.
know what's good for you and what's not good for you. You know going 200 miles an hour is not sustainable for your body and your health, even as a chiropractor or a practitioner. I, as a practitioner, know full well when I'm going too fast and inhaling all my meals and not sleeping well, that I'm now 20% suboptimal in how I feel in my body. And then we have a choice. Are we going to shift that back to optimal or not? And there is a price to pay for that. And we all know that in the health world. So my invitation is always, okay, we can have seasons, seasons of challenging, seasons of hard. But how do we dial it back in the other seasons then? Circadian rhythm, nature
Mhm.
seasons, and give ourselves the yin to the yang, because that's when we can put the body back into the healing state. And so I take that very seriously. As an Ayurvedic practitioner, I guard my summers with my life. And as I've been growing my company, my team's like, you don't get summers off. Are you kidding? That was when you weren't successful. Now you're successful. We need you. And I'm like, well, you need me not burnt out and healthy as well. So
Mhm.
schedule's going to drop in the summer. I'm a pitta fire dosha. I can't bust through my whole year at the same 200-mile-an-hour pace, but I'll give you 100% of me 9 months of the year, and you're going to give me back 3 months.
Okay,
And
can we talk
that's a
about the
decision.
dosha?
Yeah.
Okay, how do I figure out, do I have a dosha too?
Yeah.
Or just
Everybody
okay,
does.
how do you find out your dosha? Like describe, because you kind of mentioned what it was, but
Yeah.
describe it again.
Okay. So on my website, shivanigupta.com, there's a dosha quiz. And if you
Oh,
Google dosha
perfect.
quiz, tons of
Perfect.
people have them, but I have one on my website. When you take it, it'll spit out an answer to you based on the questions. So you're going to enter, like it's going to ask you physical attribute questions, mental attribute questions, and emotional tendency questions. And everyone is either a vata, a pitta, or kapha. Here in the West, we pronounce them vata, pitta, and kapha. And those three doshas represent the elements. So you're going to have a primary dosha and a secondary dosha, and very few people are balanced, amazingly balanced humans between the three of them.
Is
And
that like ideal?
yeah, yeah, it
Okay.
would be great to be a three doshic, but then I have a harder time fixing you because I don't know where to go. So I have to really work harder. Like, are you mentally more this or physically more that? Um, I think it's better to just have a dosha because then you know how to balance yourself.
Got it.
Um, yeah, it's interesting. So your dosha is decided at birth, time of birth, place of birth, your parents' doshas, like all those elements come together and decide who you are. So, for example, I'm a pitta dosha, very fiery. So is my sister. Well, we're born to like high impact, crazy fast entrepreneurial parents who were pittas. So it makes sense that the byproduct of two pitta parents would be two pitta daughters. But the way I love to explain these doshas is if you're a vata dosha, you're dominated by the elements of air and ether. So a vata person is going to be thin and slender. In their own demographic, they'll be taller or shorter. Like they'll have an extreme in their height based on their demographics, even more so than like you'll be unusual in that sense. Long features, oval face, thin bones. Like these are petite little
So you can like
wired.
walk through the airport and you'd be like, that's a
Yeah,
beta.
that's a vata. Yeah, I do that all the time. I'm like, wow, okay. And you can watch people's tendencies. So a vata person has a certain look, they're going to be thin and slender. Vata person has a certain mind. Their mind goes 200 miles a minute. They're like an energizer bunny. They have a tendency towards anxiety. Like their thoughts come in so fast. They tend to be creative. They're the artists. They have like so much energy. They're an energizer bunny. So they can keep going and going and creating. And then they end up running so fast, they never complete what they start, which is a major setback of being a vata. They get frustrated because they look like flakes because they're just off to the next thing. And then they also have a tendency not to eat all day. A vata person can just have juice and tea and crackers and some vegetables and survive their whole day without eating, unlike some of the rest of us. And so they eat like birds. And then they also have a tendency towards disrupted gut, dryness, constipation, disrupted sleep, hard to get proper sleep. So that's like the vata template. So you can imagine as practitioners, what's the homework for the vata? Grounding, 3 meals a day, Like fix that anxiety through the right foods and root vegetables, fix the sleep. And then all of a sudden you've got a really balanced vata. 3 meals a day with healthy fats is usually my first start with them.
So
Eh,
glob and ghee on.
exactly. A
Okay.
teaspoon or
I'm
two of
learning. I'm
ghee.
learning.
Ghee will fix a lot in the world, honestly. It'll do a lot for this world if we could just make purified good ghee and eat it. So that's the vata
Okay.
template and
All right.
homework.
So I'm not that person. So tell me another one.
So now pitta. Pitta is fire with some water. And so a pitta person's medium bodied, we're not on the slender side and we're not on the super heavy side or yeah, heavier, bigger bone side. Pitta, medium body, tendency towards graying hair, reddish skin tone, reddish hair. We tend towards inflammation, skin inflammation. We're going to have more like acne, rashes. Everything will be inflammation reaction when it comes to us. Because we're a fire, we are go-getters, passionate, ambitious, but we also have all the words that would describe a volcano. So we're going to explode. We get hangry, we get burnt out. We will like have a volcanic eruption on the people around us. So the people around us take the brunt of our high energy because we get jealous, we get angry easily, and definitely hangry is a big part of it. So pitta people, because we have a tendency towards inflammation, we're supposed to avoid salty, spicy, oily foods, and that's all we want to eat. We are overheated like a nuclear reactor. Our job is to keep ourselves cool, calm, and collected, which we won't do. We will survive the whole day caffeinating and we will forget to ever hydrate. And then we're like, why? Why do we have headaches? Why are we like overburnt out and exhausted? It's because we're not managing ourselves properly. So that's a pitta person. And then you have kapha persons. So the kapha person is bigger boned, stronger, rounder features, rounder, big, oily, curly hair. They're going to tend to be one thing at a time. They're going to be stronger. They can actually lift heavier weight. Think of like your grandma, your mother earth energy, one thing at a time, cooking for everyone with love, fiercely loyal, slower in their speech, slower in their actions because it's one thing at a time, tend towards sluggish metabolism. Once they sit on the couch, they cannot get up. They just can't. It's like Mother Earth sat down. She's not going to get up. And so, literally, teaching forgiveness is the biggest homework I have with a kapha person. Because I'm like, once you sit down when you get home from work, are you able to get up? And they're like, no. I'm like, forgive yourself now. It's your dosha. Do your whole day. And once you sit, you sat. And that's okay. So our homework with kapha is like get that metabolism moving, show them how to exercise and move in the morning, that kind of thing. And you can have a primary and a secondary dosha. So I meet a lot of pittas and who became kapha. And they're like, I don't feel like myself in my body. Everything feels heavier or slower. And I move them back. Or they're vatas and they're imbalanced big time and they have to be regulated. So understanding your dosha is actually the most beautiful way to understand how to acknowledge what your actual traits are, not try to change them at all, and then balance them. So you feel more
Hmm.
balanced in your own body. And then you're not creating the disease tendencies that tend to happen based on your specific dosha.
Yeah, and I imagine that once you have that, it's easier to kind of know, like, well, what are some like 3 simple daily habits that I can start doing now that doesn't have me fully jumping into a detox, right? Like, I would imagine that that's pretty helpful.
Yes. Yeah, it keeps it easier and it keeps you more supported. Like as a pitta, I know that summer season is the hot season. So now I know my job is actually most to detox before summer and detox after summer. All the rest is kind of optional. But if I manage summer well, my whole year goes better. And on the years where I just bust through the summer and work at full throttle, fall season hits and there's like a wall and I'm going to hit the wall and then I'm going to be burnt out and then I'm going to have to manage it anyway. And so it's really such a powerful tool for self-awareness and self-understanding because
Mm,
then you can manage yourself so differently.
yeah. Okay. If you're building a pharmacy with
Yes.
a F,
Yeah.
you've probably mentioned multiple of the ingredients already, but like, let's say I am going to the Indian store. Like, what are your top 10?
Mm. All right. Number one, I would start with cumin seeds. Cumin seeds we use to cook anything that's hard to digest. So if you're going to eat cauliflower, broccoli, lentils, beans, um, what other vegetables hard to digest? Yeah, any of those. If you're going to eat a hard to digest food or vegetable, even meat can be considered hard to digest. Heat oil in the pan, put a pinch of cumin seeds. I put like half a teaspoon and let them start to move and dance in the pan and release their aroma. That one habit will help you start digesting your food better. It's simple. Now, if you're willing to take that up one more notch, hing or asafoetida is the second spice that we add in there. So any Indian household that's going to eat beans or lentils never cooks them without those two spices involved because those are going to improve the digestion of those foods. I consider them pre-digestive. It supports the digestion.
So
Um,
specifically with like the lentils and beans.
yeah, a lot of people say they can't eat beans because it gives them gas, and we're like, no, it doesn't. You're just not cooking it right. Like those are the two spices you needed to know to digest them better. So those are two of my favorites that I use all the time. Like, for example, today we're going to eat leftover lentils, and I'm like, nope, no one's touching those until I pan heat the oil, cumin, and hing. Then the lentils go on top, and that'll support the digestion of this 1 day old food to digest better. So even when you're reheating food, cumin goes great in Mexican food. Cumin goes great in Indian food. Uh, uh, I wouldn't say all foods, but most foods it'll do well.
Okay.
And then my third favorite would be in cooking or in anything in life, turmeric. And I ended up doing my PhD dissertation on turmeric, so I'm obsessed with turmeric
Okay.
because it's anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, anti-aging, kills off the cells in our body that don't belong there, kills off zombie cells. It's so powerful as something that goes after the things causing oxidation. So to me, turmeric is like the number one above all, and you don't even need the other 10, but the other 10 are still good for you.
And how do you feel about taking it orally? Like
So when
just
it comes
capsules?
Yeah, so when it comes to turmeric, we never used fresh turmeric in the Indian culture. We used it as like a radish or garnish. We always dried it and use it as the spice. And when it comes to the spice, only 3% is the curcuminoids. And of the three curcuminoids, curcumin is the most effective at reducing inflammation. So once I finished my PhD, my whole goal was how do I create something that all of Western medicine will now use and give me when I have pain or inflammation? Like, why are we using NSAIDs chronically? That makes no sense. So I built a formula and I gave the right proportion of those curcuminoids. So we reached like 97 to 98% grade potency, but without driving that result synthetically. So the body receives it. And so I've been able to work with orthopedics, rheumatology, chiropractic for the last 10 years with my same two formulas made the exact same way to give a chronic joint pain solution to people, which is really exciting to me. So turmeric is like my favorite above all. And then my next one after turmeric is ginger, because ginger is a sister plant to turmeric. And so yeah, to answer your question, I love oral supplementation. I created one, and I'm a big believer of take your turmeric every day as your insurance policy because we're always going to be inflaming between our stress, our digestion, our gut health, the environmental toxins, etc. So I'm a big fan of turmeric every day, pretty much every day, cycle on and off, and then add on to that when you are inflamed. But I love ginger too. Ginger lemon tea, I think, is a great solution. Using ginger when you cook is really beautiful. It's gastroprotective, has so many gut healing properties and effects. So that's four. Fifth would be coriander, cilantro. It's heavy metal detoxing, so it has a lot of benefits to it. Sixth would be fennel. Fennel seeds, if you chew on them after you eat, will help you digest your food better. So if meals, like even keeping a little packet of them on you for anytime you eat in a restaurant, would be very self-serving. Like when you go to an Indian restaurant, have you noticed that there's a bowl after with fennel seeds and maybe a little sugar? Sugar is going to soothe the stomach because it's going to cool you down. Sugar cools. And that fennel seed will help you digest that food because most Americans don't eat spicy Indian food all the time. So it's going to cause this like indigestion and pain. And the fennel will settle it down.
Interesting.
So it's like a strategic thing to put
Yeah.
at the for your way out. And then what else? Mm, we use red chili powder, black pepper. Those are always going to ignite digestion. Anytime you use regular turmeric spice, add black pepper or a healthy fat to increase the absorption. That's a
Or a
really
healthy fat, because I've heard the black pepper thing before. I'd never heard
yeah. So there's equal science between that was one of my conclusions in my PhD was one day can someone please actually do an apples to apples comparison because no one does apples to apples, which is funny. But curcumin with lipids is very beneficial or curcumin with black pepper. And I'm team black pepper, but I'm always curious about the other
I
side.
don't know. You're talking a lot about ghee. Okay, I
Yeah.
think you need ghee in this,
Yes. Yeah.
in
It's
your
hard to put in a
10.
pill though. It would go rancid. Like you have to be careful with
Oh,
supplement.
yeah.
Right? Like for me, when I created a supplement, my dream was how do I get Western medicine to trust it? And so I'm all about like how do I source potency, third party testing, like
Mhm.
so until I know without a doubt I can deliver something consistently perfectly, I won't build it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, in your pharmacy though, in your top 10,
Yes.
I would
Oh
assume.
yeah. We have ghee in our house. We avoid all seed oils,
So
all
what's up
good,
what's up why is ghee so it's
beneficial.
clarified butter, which I don't really know why that makes it better. And then why is it so beneficial? It's
You
clarified.
know,
That's why it's better. It's clarified. I clarified it.
such a good question. So when it comes to ghee, it's interesting. Ghee has a cooling effect in the body. So there's a concept in Ayurveda called ojas. Ojas just means that like when you eat well and you have healthy digestion, the byproduct of that is this thing. It's like this nectar called ojas that's basically your vitality. So you know how like when you get a
No big
surgery,
deal.
you go through a major stress, you just get like knocked off your pedestal and you're like, I feel like crap. I have no vitality or energy, and I'm going to have to find that thing again.
Mhm.
That is ojas. And so we have just a few select foods that are going to rebuild that in the body. And ghee is one of them. Ghee gives you strength, it gives you that vitality and health. Almonds are another great one. I think any good plant-based foods would be them. But yeah, ghee, dates, almonds, there's certain foods on that list that will rebuild ojas. So ghee is something we use as a healthy fat in our cooking. You can put it on top if you need oleation of the gut lining. So if anyone's constipated, just add a teaspoon or two of ghee on top of the food. Eat it for dinner and see what happens the next morning.
Mm.
You'll fix your problem real fast and you'll be impressed with that bowel movement. My mother-in-law did that to me when I was pregnant. She's like, "Have some ghee, 2 tablespoons." And I was like, "You are gonna make me fat." And she goes, "No, just watch." And the next day I was like, "Oh, okay. That's a quick healing solution. That fixes you right up." So it's just one of those simple things where we could build a kitchen full of awesome things that are simple ancient recipes that work for us. And ghee is one of those.
Interesting. Okay, we're at 8. You get 2 more on your list.
I get 2 more. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Number 8 or 9, ashwagandha. Uh,
Oh, okay.
I love ashwagandha. You would never use it in your kitchen because it's like a tree bark and it's gross. Some people do love to mix it in their like lattes and ideas. I am a big fan of veggie caps and just swallowing the things that taste gross. But ashwagandha is an adaptogen. If you're stressed and anxious, it'll bring you down a couple notches. If you're depressed and having the blues, it'll lift you up. It functions like this beautiful, intuitive, intelligent thermostat. And I love that because I always need neurocognitive support. I always need more anti inflammatory support. I need all the support. The ashwagandha is one of those powerhouses that I have put in different teas and formulas, and people tell me it calms me down, helps me focus, but reduces the overwhelm because a lot of times we get really overwhelmed. And so I love that one as like an anti-anxiety. And there's science that proves that ashwagandha is as effective as 14 different psychoactive drugs that people have used.
And what are, like, the be careful because, like, I feel
Sure.
like so, like, anytime with any of this, like,
Yeah.
Western medicine is right there to be like, "Oh, be careful.
I
Be
know.
careful with ashwagandha." So,
Yeah.
like, how much a day for, like, a normal adult? And then, like, who should not be on ashwagandha?
Okay, so you know what's funny? Because I am known as the turmeric girl or the turmeric queen, and everyone knows like if anyone says turmeric, they're like, "Call that girl Shivani," and they share my Instagram. I get so much. I all I read about is turmeric, and I get sent articles on turmeric, and it's funny to me sometimes the hit pieces that are written against turmeric, and I just
On turmeric?
yeah, they're like,
The
we have
hit
to be
piece?
careful. It
Yeah.
has a blood thinning effect. And I'm like, what about the freaking aspirin you told us to take until we die? Really? You didn't think that had a negative impact? Oh,
Mhm.
like I get so angry. I'm like, this is called a hit piece to create confusion and doubt. Thanks so much.
Mhm.
Just watch me. I'm going to make $1 billion in this life just to publish all the science that goes against all you dorks
Yeah,
and
and I don't think there's
face it
any
undoubted.
why. I don't think there's any, like doesn't need to be a question of like, "But why? Who benefits from that hit piece?"
I
We
know.
know. But
I think we
anyways,
know who benefits,
yeah.
but, I'm married into an all family of MDs, and so it's, like, part of my life plan to publish turmeric for each disease pathology before I die. Like, I have a turmeric ophthalmology paper that's about to come out now, and I am just so ready for, like, knee osteoarthritis of my own and rheumatoid arthritis. Like, I'm going after each one, and publishing irrefutable clinical double-blind placebo-controlled trials. So that it's like irrefutable that curcumin is as effective as NSAIDs because I've seen that myself, you know? So yes, what are the negative effects of ashwagandha is your question.
Or just like, interactions, I guess,
Contraindications.
yeah.
Yeah, here's the problem. Who's gonna fund that? Who's gonna pay? So that's the question my doctors ask me all the time, and I'm like, "Okay, well, the contraindication with turmeric I know is don't take it with a blood thinner, be careful if you have kidney stones, watch it with gallbladder, and it does not have oxalates when it's in curcumin form, so you're fine, but still keep an eye and watch your iron levels because it's blood thinning." But ashwagandha, I have not read yet what the contraindications are.
Yeah.
I think it's pregnancy and watch it with thyroid. But the
Mm,
thyroid question is both sides. Some people say it's beneficial for thyroid
yep,
conditions, and then some people say it isn't. So
got it.
it's like a stay tuned. But imagine when you're in the supplement world, how much science can you fund? You'll never fund it going toe to toe with a pharma solution.
That's the chiropractic dilemma too, where it's like, "We're trying, we're really trying," but
Oh, it's tough. It's tough. And then if you ask me to pick a 10th, my 10th would be Shatavari. It's probably in the West pronounced Shatavari, Shatavari. I used it in a tea I built called Menopause Support Tea. When it comes to female health and reproductive organs and male health reproductive organs, Shatavari is like the powerhouse adaptogen. So I've had men post like colon cancer or colon issues who needed help with rejuvenative support of male reproductive organs. They took that same tea. And then women with hot flashes and night sweats, yeah, they take it as well. And they find a
awesome.
lot of benefit. So to me, I just love playing in that world of these herbs and spices because they are plant magic from Mother Earth. You give people those plants, body will receive them, body's intelligence will use them. So it's just about how do we keep fighting to like use safe, clean, potent sources that drive an effective result.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I was like really holding back, trying to be a good host, but like I already pulled up your website and I'm like, I really want to take this quiz right now, but I'm gonna wait until I'm done. So I'm gonna do the dosha quiz. And then okay, so talk to me about where can people get some of these supplements that you talked about? Where can people get like more resources from you? Where can we find more of you?
Perfect. So my website is my name, shivanigupta.com, SHIVANIGUPTA.com. And my Instagram is at dr.shivanigupta. So there you'll find my dosha quiz, my 7-day inflammation challenge. I have a big Facebook group, lots of guides, and my 6-week immersion program where I like to drop people into the Ayurveda lifestyle. And that's all housed there. And then my supplement line is called Fusionary Formulas, FUSIONARY formulas. And so that is e-com online because so many people need chronic joint pain solutions. And then my job is I speak at medical conferences and orthopedic conferences, and I will just keep working up my mountain for the rest of my life of convincing Western medicine of my goal. But I love working alongside the practitioners. So I speak at chiropractic conferences and things like that. And Fusionary is at Fusionary Formulas RX on Instagram, and we have all the social channels, and we have a podcast, Fusionary Health Podcast.
Oh, awesome.
I interview epic practitioners because I'm obsessed with all the fusionary doctors because I got to know them when I introduced them to my cool products. And so I made a special code for your audience. She Slays will give them 15% off on my website, Fusionary Formulas. And then that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you said you were just at the Florida Chiropractic
Yes, I was at
Association,
Florida
right?
Chiropractic Physician Association. I taught them turmeric for inflammation, which was so exciting.
I would assume speaking at a chiropractic conference is easier
Way
than
easier. I feel
than
like I'm with my people. I'm like, we are 100% aligned in our thinking. Like
right.
I should have gone to chiropractic school because it would have been a party and so much fun, and I would have like met my calling people all around me. Versus when I go to like neurology, orthopedics, they're all presenting their science to each other on how they surgically do things, and it's all blood and gore. And then I'm like, hey, I'm just here to talk about the science of
We're here to
turmeric
talk
as
about
a
turmeric.
post-surgical solution. And they're like, what the hell is she doing here? But you know what? I get a couple every time. Just a
Yep.
few come back to me and they're like, "Oh, that sounds great. I'm open." And I'm like, "Okay, this is perfect. We're making our impact."
Oh, I wanted to ask real quick, like, do you also recommend like anti-parasitic stuff like once a year or anything with the people you're working with? I would
I
assume.
think I think we should all do proper stool tests once a year. I mean, between our hormones, blood tests, stool tests, food intolerance tests, I wish I had the funds to do them all the time. But yes, I think it's so important to do a proper stool test. Know what your gut says. Is it a parasite? Is it a gut dysbiosis due to stress or leaky gut? Like, what is the problem? And then really target the approach and solve it. I don't know that I believe in like prophylactic parasite cleansing just because the poor gut, at least in my case, needs so much love and honoring.
Mhm.
But yes, we need to pay attention to the fact that most of us are probably running around with gut dysbiosis of some kind. And what is it? And we have to address that.
Yeah. Do you have a company that does like that you can like order an online it comes to your house stool sample situation?
I do. I have one. If people do one-on-one consultations with me, I will order a stool test on them, or I partner with so many great functional medicine doctors. Because
Got it.
usually when I do a one-on-one, someone's got advanced autoimmune conditions and issues, and I'm like, you know what? We need a practitioner on board, and I get to handle just the Ayurveda coaching part of it. And then I have new mentors. Like my mentors are the founders of Microbiome Labs and the founder of Cellcore. So I'm surrounded by these like behemoth epic supplement companies who did it right and created
Mhm.
phenomenal products. And so that's been really inspiring to like constantly figure out how do we give the right protocols to the practitioner to support the patient to get the best result.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
thank you so much for your time. This was really cool and interesting. And per usual, I'm like such a bandwagon person where I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna order all these things and I'm gonna get a recipe book and like this is gonna be great.
Me too.
So,
I'm the
thank
same way.
thank you so much, Shivani. All right, we will have those links below, and that discount code, an affiliate link. I'm assuming
Yes.
I will have that below for you. And until next week, She Slayers. Bye.